Captain James Turner had spent 30 years at sea. He had seen everything: raging storms, uncharted waters, even ghost stories from old sailors. But nothing could prepare him for what was about to happen. His ship, the Atlantic Star, was making its way through a thick fog when the radio crackled to life. Mayday. Mayday. This is the Blackwood Lighthouse. We need immediate assistance. The voice was weak, desperate, but there was just one problem. The Blackwood Lighthouse had been abandoned for over 50 years. James glanced at his crew. They had heard it too. A shiver ran down his spine. No way! That place has been empty for decades. But the signal was real, and against all logic, it was calling Todd for help. The storm was closing in fast, waves crashing against the ship as Captain James made the decision that would change everything. "Set course for Blackwood Lighthouse," he ordered. The crew hesitated, fear in their eyes, but they obeyed. As they approached the island, the lighthouse loomed in the darkness, standing tall but lifeless. The beams of their flashlights cut through the fog as James and 2 crew members rowed ashore. The wooden door was ajar, creaking in the wind. Inside, dust and decay covered everything. The smell of damp wood and salt filled the air. The place had been abandoned for years. Then, something caught James's eye. A radio, still powered, the red light blinking. "How is this possible?" one of the men whispered. James's fingers trembled as he picked up a worn-out logbook lying next to it. He flipped to the last entry. The ink was faded, but the words sent chills down his spine. June 12th, 1953. "The storm is getting worse. I can hear them outside. They are coming for me." And then, one final sentence. "If anyone finds this, please, don't let him take you too." A sudden noise upstairs made everyone freeze. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. James's heart pounded as he raised his lantern and climbed the spiraling staircase. The air grew colder with every step. At the top, in the lantern room, stood a man. Or at least, what looked like a man. Dressed in an old lighthouse keeper's uniform, his pale face barely illuminated by the dying light. His lips parted. "You came, just like I did, when I heard the call." James swallowed hard. "Who are you?" The man's empty eyes locked onto his. "I was the keeper here, 50 years ago. I heard a distress signal. Just like you. I came, but I never left." The wind howled through the cracks in the glass. James took a step back, gripping the railing. "This isn't possible." The keeper smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "He doesn't let you leave." "Who?" James whispered. The keeper raised a shaking hand and pointed behind James. James turned and saw nothing. Just darkness. But then, a voice. A whisper, crawling into his ears. "Stay. With me." James stumbled backward, heart racing. He grabbed the radio and turned the dial, trying to send a distress call of his own. But the static swallowed his voice. Then, the lighthouse door slammed shut. The crew outside banged against it, shouting his name. "Captain! Captain!" The keeper's voice grew distant. "You can't leave. None of us can." James fought against the unseen force pulling him toward the shadows. He had a choice: give in to whatever had trapped the keeper, or fight. Summoning every ounce of strength, he lunged for the door, wrenching it open. A powerful gust of wind almost knocked him off his feet, but he pushed forward, tumbling down the steps and crashing into his crew. "Go, now!" he shouted. They scrambled to the boat, rowing as fast as they could. As they pulled away, James dared one final glance back. The lighthouse was dark again, silent, but at the very top, he saw 2 figures. Standing side by side, the old keeper, and something else, something James would never speak of again. Back on the ship, the crew was shaken. No one spoke of what they had seen, but as James sat in his cabin, drenched and exhausted, he reached into his pocket. The lighthouse keeper's logbook was still there. He turned to the last page. Something new was written. "Thank you for letting me go." James's hands shook as he closed the book. The Blackwood Lighthouse was abandoned once more, But somewhere in the darkness, the signal still called out, waiting for the next sailor to answer.